Oh, didn't realise we were live. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Really tackling the topic of whether you as a firm are looking to outsource. And we're joined on this call with Alan Woods, Adam Gunnell, and Robert Grant. Just a quick I think we should do a quick introduction of who we are before we get started. My name's Nick Cheney. I look after product and growth at Capium, and have been doing this job for the past 6 years. It's where I've kind of met and gotten to know Alan, Adam, and Robert. Robert?
Yeah, hi, Robert Grant here. I'm the head of customer experience at Initor Global. My background is over 30 years experience working in practice. So I have engaged many different outsource providers over the years. So I hope to bring you some perspectives from my experiences as a practitioner, as well as how I like to look at outsourcing as a solution to some of the challenges accounting practices are seeing today.
Brilliant. Alan?
Yeah, morning everyone, or afternoon even, isn't it? Just after 12. It's Alan from Wood Squared. We're accountants based up in the northwest near Liverpool. It was a team of 2 of us in the office, and then we operate using outsourcing, obviously with Initor. So know Rob well.
Brilliant, thank you, Alan. Adam?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Adam from Palmer's Business Support. We're a full-service accounting practice focused mostly on growth and sort of fast exit, fast growth type clientele in the home counties and London. We are a virtual office completely. All of our staff are either overseas in terms of our outsourcing partners or locally in their own places of work run by us. So we've relied heavily on cloud accounting, obviously, and outsourcing to get where we are today.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam. Please enter into the chat box where you're joining us from, maybe what you're looking to get out of this webinar, and feel free to ask questions, and I'll either ask them at the end, or if appropriate, I'll interject during this presentation. The webinar is being recorded, okay, and it will be shared with those who've attended after the webinar, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Robert to kick start.
Okay.
And I shall share my screen.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Nick. Yes, so welcome to today's webinar. As you will see, the subject matter is around outsourcing and whether now is the right time for your practice to consider outsourcing. So for the next 45 minutes or so, you'll hear from me as a sort of head of customer experience here at Initor, and from Adam and Alan as our guests. There's also going to be a couple of polls throughout the course of the presentation, where we would really value your input, just to understand where some of you are in terms of your views of outsourcing and whether your practice is ready for it. So that really helps inform some of the discussion as we go along. So as we've said, we've got a lot to get through, and Nick will field any questions and bring them together in a coherent way, so that we can address any concerns that you may have. So Nick, if you go to the next slide, I'd like to set some context for today's presentation. Can you go to the next slide, Nick?
Can you not see?
No, I need the slide on context. Why now? Maybe the next, so slide 2.
Yep, that's up.
Right, okay. So just before we go into the audience poll, I'd like to set some context for today's presentation. So if we start with areas such as cost of living, increase in overheads that your practice may have, focus on increasing profitability, need to scale quickly, these are all factors that you will be thinking about as you wish to enter into outsourcing. And of course, you have the client side of things as well. Client expectations have never been higher of any service providers. Clients nowadays are quite comfortable changing their accountant year to year. Advances in technology make it easier for clients to take their business from one accountant to another. And of course, there's also the impact of social media and sort of some of the areas like Trustpilot and Google feedback and so on that you need to take account of when you're dealing with clients. So there's a lot to really throw into the mix when you're thinking about designing your practice for the future. There's also some people angles as well. Staff retention is a very live issue for many practices now. And there's obviously different skill sets now needed to deliver, especially advisory services as well. Developments in technology, the government's agenda around making tax digital, and the whole agenda around data security really do give you things to think about when you're developing your practice development plans for the future. And of course, we are at a period of time where there's been some significant changes within the existing government, big changes around tax and spending, and of course, political uncertainty with a general election looming maybe in the next 18 months. And also those of you who work in Scotland and in Wales as well, you will be dealing with different tax regimes that are brought together by those devolved administrations. So when you throw all that together, you really need to be thinking carefully about how you might deliver services for the future and how you may put outsourcing at the centre of that to help you build the capacity that you need to move forwards. So what I'd like to do now, if possible, Mimi, is deliver the first audience poll, which you'll see on your screens in a moment. So Mimi, if you could launch that and we could maybe see some of the outcomes from it.
Yeah, I think just to read out the question, which of the following provides the biggest risk to your resilience and growth, which outsourcing may help with? Is it managing your overheads, your profitability, human resources, or delivery? So yeah, please submit your answers. That would be great. So far, we've got 5 responses. So there should be a quick pop-up. Please feel free to enter away. Oh, they're flooding in now. Give it a few moments more. So there does seem to be a tie, really. So the 2 main reasons why people are looking maybe to consider outsourcing to help them with resilience and growth is profitability and human resources. So they seem to be the main kind of concerns of the audience at the moment in time, Robert.
Okay, great. So if we move to this next slide, just a reminder that we have Alan and Adam with us today. And I think it's a good time to bring you guys in. So start with Adam. What sort of challenges were you looking to overcome when you thought about outsourcing for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, so we're a relatively new practice. We've only been going about 6 or 7 years. I guess I've been, as we often do, you start on your own, and I've been playing away on my own for the first 2 to 3 years of that time. And you get to a point where you reach capacity and you decide, well, do I stay as a high functioning solo practitioner or do I grow this thing? And I looked around and I'd already been working with a different outsourcer actually for payroll. And that was working reasonably well. And then you just look, well, let's go to the next step. And the hardest thing for me to do is to actually fire the first job over. It's just that how do I engage? What do I do here physically? What buttons do I press to make this work? And once I worked that bit out, sent the first job over, and it's been plain sailing ever. Well, nothing's ever plain sailing, is it? But it's been a great relationship and a great experience ever since. It's allowed me to get on and do what I'm best at, which is develop the practice. And we're continuing to grow at 25% plus a year as a result of that. So.
Yeah, so heavy focus on growth and trying to build capacity and providing the services that your clients need. And Alan, similar question to you. What sort of challenges were you looking to overcome when you've started this journey towards outsourcing?
Yeah, I mean, probably the key challenge we were looking at the time was just trying to clear, coming out the back of COVID at the time, and trying to clear the backlog of kind of the compliance work, which perhaps had just taken a bit of a back seat whilst we were doing all the furlough and loan applications and grants, etc. for clients. So really just helping with that from an operational point of view, delivery, and a HR point of view, because we didn't have that sort of capacity to be able to just deal with that particular bottleneck and that particular backlog. Definitely share the view that Adam had there about that sort of first, sending over that first job. I think it is I think a lot of people perhaps think that's a bit more scary or daunting than perhaps it might need to be or is in reality. And yeah, I think once you've done it and you just then have that two-way conversation with the provider, it gets definitely with you guys at Initor, it just gets easier. It gets easier and easier as you provide more and more opportunities to kind of develop that relationship.
Yeah, I think that's right, Alan. Certainly my experience when I was going for outsourcing the first time in one of my previous practices, it was around clearing a significant backlog. Just with the best will in the world, you can have accountants working overtime, weekends, but you never get on the front foot unless you can, take a positive step to move some of the work to an outsourced provider. I found that was it was a great comfort when it actually all came together, but a lot of apprehension before we actually did it. So if I move on now, Nick, to the next slide and just talk about what outsourcing services actually means. So really, at its most basic level, outsourcing is when a business, any business, not just accountants, engages a third-party company to perform any tasks, handle operational matters, provide human resources and services on its behalf. So it's a very wide sort of definition encompassing a lot of work that an outsourced provider may do. Certainly from our experiences for UK practices, at Initor, we provide the full range of accounting services end to end, from digital bookkeeping through to your year-end accounts, payroll services, often an area that accounting practices struggle to get on top of, all your company tax, VAT, personal tax services, and secretarial services as well. So really, almost all services that an accountant provides can be outsourced in one way or another. And if you just move to the next slide, please, Nick, we talked about some of the apprehensions that both Adam and Alan had before they sort of took the leap to outsource work. And you will often hear some of these perceptions and misconceptions about outsourcing among accountants you may talk to. They may say outsourcing doesn't support a profit model, it's not scalable. There may be a feeling that outsourcing doesn't allow you to remain in control of your work delivery. Some feel that it may provide poor value for money. The practice is simply too small to make it worthwhile, and only large businesses can afford it. Others may have concerns about data security, probably number one on the priorities for many accountants nowadays. And of course, the people aspect, which we'll keep coming back to, that staff morale may be adversely affected by outsourcing because naturally accountants may feel threatened by bringing in an outsourced provider to do the work that they've been doing for many years. And the client aspect as well I've touched on. Clients do have high expectations and may not like accountants outsourcing work. So I'll say a few words about trying to nail that sort of misconception as well. One of the things we keep coming back to, especially when you outsource offshore, is that there are time zone, language and cultural differences may be perceived as barriers. And I'll say a few words about how we've managed to overcome that from both sides. And also the pace of change with technologies and industry trends. I've mentioned making tax digital, ChatGPT, chatbots, and so on. There may be a feeling among some providers that outsourcing can't keep up with that. So a lot of misconceptions that have to be dealt with. And these are the things that are probably front of mind when you're making that decision to go towards outsourcing. And if I can bring in Alan again, could you talk about maybe some of the barriers that you perceived when you first thought about outsourcing, and whether you recognise any of the misconceptions that I may have highlighted in those bullet points?
Yeah, probably all of them, to be honest, in one way, shape, or form. If I'm being truly truthful about it, probably the one wasn't really an issue was what the client might think about us outsourcing. That particularly wasn't one that I thought of as a particular issue for me. I didn't necessarily think that was something that was that particularly relevant, but definitely data, where the data's held. There is that time difference. The reality, I think, with that though, is that by the time you send the job to someone to do the work and it's outsourced, in theory, you could have that work back and completed by the next morning, to some extent. So there is that ability of actually being a quicker turnaround rather than a slower one. And yeah, I think I suppose that kind of consistency of delivery was probably the biggest thing that we sort of had a fear of, and whether each piece of work would be done in the same way or whether it be slightly different, and then how we would manage that process. Again, the reality was totally different to what that was, but yeah, there's a few of those that definitely ring bells.
Yeah. Okay, and similarly, Adam, anything in there that you recognise at the time you were thinking about outsourcing?
Absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned, the first step was the hardest, and then once that first job came back, I was like, okay, this is going to work. Why didn't I do this sooner? And that doesn't mean it's a Shangri-La, because nothing is. You have to work at everything in this world, and the relationship side. I think, as I said, I had another outsourcer to begin with before I worked with Initor, and it was the relationship I developed with Initor on a personal level that made me move all my business across in the end. And now it's completely hardwired into our practice. This is how we work, and to go to a point where if it's 4 or 5 down there about client expectation, we flip that around. We sell it as a benefit. The UK staff here that you deal with have got more time to talk to you and understand your problems, because the number crunching is being done in the back office, as I refer to it. And I make no bones about the fact that that's overseas and outsourced. Clients actually like that in the end, because they understand that they're going to get more out of you as their UK accountant.
Yeah, I think that's important, because day to day, handling your clients will always be something that you want to do yourself. But in your everyday life, people they realise that the services may be provided outside of the UK. Talk to a mobile phone provider, you probably go through to an Indian call centre. Similarly with your other technologies as well. I think it's just embedded into the way we do business in the UK. So I wouldn't be certainly too concerned about that. I'd like to take a deeper dive now into some of the service areas. If you could go to the next slide, please, Nick. I want to talk about service delivery as well, which seems to be a theme. So if you could move to the next slide. In terms of how outsourcing can help you deliver, it really can help you focus on your core business activities. It can certainly increase the efficiency and reduce your costs of your day-to-day work. It's a flexible resource that you can scale. We talked about clearing backlogs and so on. And it also creates capacity that allows you to engage with clients and sell those advisory services or tax advice that really allows you to increase your margins day to day. In terms of your people, it can help meet the career expectations of your people, because they have more time to concentrate on their CPD, more time to learn more skills, and they're not too hung up on some of the compliance-based pieces of work, which maybe appear repetitive or even really not a good use of their grade and experience. I think outsourcing can underpin data integrity and security, especially when it's integrated with your own operating framework. So the outsourced supplier will have exactly the same standards, same expectations, will follow the same compliance requirements in terms of preserving your data. And also it does help respond to technological and industry trends. And if you go into the next slide, I'll start diving into some of those items in a bit more detail, please, Nick. So in terms of core business focus, that's a good place to start. And I'll bring in Adam at the end of this slide just to talk about how outsourcing has helped allow you to spend more time building your business. From the outset, outsourced providers serve all sizes of clients, from ad hoc bookkeeping for a sole practitioner, right through to the largest audits for the Big Four. It is now the way accounting practices do business. Adam mentioned the sort of, the decisions about, which outsource supplier to go with, and, how they arrived at Initor Global. And that was after a period of due diligence. So you need to make sure that the supplier is a good fit with your business, your cultures, your way of doing business. It does free up your capacity to focus on your strategic objectives, maybe refine those in the short, the medium, and the longer term. And it will certainly add value to your business by allowing you to focus on those areas. I personally have always found that outsourcing can drive up quality standards because you are outsourcing repetitive work. It's compliance-based, it's the statutory work that needs completing, and it's always coming back at a standard that you specify in your contract. And it can meet your client expectations. Turnaround times are invariably improved, and often client expectations are exceeded. So Adam, I said I'd bring you in here. So if you'd just like to, maybe give us a few seconds on, how outsourcing has helped you focus your attention on building your business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the reliability factor. And as we've grown, when it was just me as a sole practitioner, things were happening when I was asleep, which was great because that didn't used to happen. And now as we've grown and we have UK staff and they outsource their jobs to Initor, things are happening for them while they're asleep, which just means they've got more time to plan, to correct, to do the fine detail and the things that matter to clients. So that's been the biggest difference to us. And in terms of quality standards, obviously you have to check each piece of work as it comes back, but you would do if it came from a junior in the UK, so there's no difference in the process. It's just that I can have a part-time member of staff here handling up to 10 jobs at any given time, and they would have only been working on 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So the output is just significantly higher. And therefore I can talk to a client, and I do this regularly on a prospective client, and say, well, we can get that turned around in 5 days for you. And they look at me as if I'm mad because the existing lot will take 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's true. I take the job and I'll come back within a week with draft accounts to discuss. So it's so easy in that respect to win new business when you know how to position it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because with the best will in the world, no accountant charges 100% of the time. There's CPD time, the training time, there's building the business time, and you have the comfort of knowing that when you outsource work, that you're paying for 100% of the work to be completed, and it's all within a single price. So I think that's a great attraction of allowing you to concentrate on what you do best and just outsourcing the compliance-based work. If we move on to the next slide now, Nick, I'll just talk about a bit more detail about how efficiency can be increased and how costs can be reduced. And Alan, at the end of this slide, I'll bring you in and maybe you can give us your perspective on this. Certainly, I found when I was outsourcing that I felt in control of the costs because contractually I specify the outputs, and it allowed my practice to gain some competitive advantages through the increased efficiency that the review of internal systems, controls, processes and outcomes brought. It really forces you to look critically at the way you do your business and how you set up your internal systems. And of course, typically you negotiate with your outsourced supplier as volumes increase, unit costs reduce. So that allows you the flexibility to reduce your costs over a medium to longer term. And we come back to those turnaround times that Adam mentioned. You can look your client in the eye and say, look, we're going to deliver this in 5 days for you, or 10 days if that's your turnaround time. You're not relying on some of the more uncontrollable factors within your own practice, if staff are off on leave or sick, or they have other short-term priorities to deal with. So you're always in control of the service delivery. The streamlining of internal processes and investment in new document management really does pay dividends, because it's in your interest to make this as slick an operation as possible in terms of the flow of information between you and your outsourced supplier. And at Initor, we help accounting practices look critically at their systems, and we bring our expertise to the table and tell you, look, we've done this over a number of years with other clients. we can make this work for you with a few tweaks to your internal systems. And of course, automation itself is driving the way you do business in any event, and also the way you communicate with clients. Making tax digital, while the income tax self-assessment regime has been put back for a couple of years, no doubt that is going to change the way you interact with your client and the regularity with which you contact them. Outsourcing can underpin all that with key stages in the communication process. So if I could bring you in, Alan, without giving too much away at the detailed level, how have you felt about any impact on your efficiency and cost base after outsourcing work?
Yeah, no, it definitely has an impact on that, and I think it's something. I think Adam mentioned this as well, and you certainly mentioned it as well just then, Robert. Is that it's something that you can control. So if you know that you've got or you want to be able to outsource a certain number of hours per week, per month, per year, you've got a fixed cost for that then, and then it's just a case then of being able to find the work to fill that time. And I think you mentioned, Robert, as well, it's 100% of that time as well. You don't have to build into that any other kind of admin or anything else that's kind of within a sort of a team member. Often is something that needs to be taken account of. So its productivity and efficiency is so much better. I think as well that the other thing there, I know it talks about reducing costs here, but I think Adam certainly mentioned it from his point of view from gaining new clients. But the number of accountants that I speak to that in probably once a quarter, when it comes to that sort of March, June, September, December, certainly tax return season, they'll almost stop taking on new work because they just don't have the capacity or the resource to do it. So actually the cost that it's costing a business, and we were included in that as well, is that there are times when actually you dread the phone going or an email coming in to give you that opportunity for more work, because you then think, well, how am I going to deliver that without kind of not meeting the expectations? So definitely increases efficiency, definitely increases productivity, and it helps you to manage costs and not lose income, and lose opportunities for income as well, which is a real positive for us.
Yeah, excellent. So if we move to the next slide, Nick, I'll pick up some of those themes about how flexible and agile outsourcing can help you achieve. You mentioned peaks of work, Alan. Yeah, I mean, I always found outsourcing was a great solution when we moved into the winter months, and all of my clients at the time decided to land their self-assessment tax returns for completion in December and then into January. So when you have those severe peaks of work and when deadlines are looming, outsourcing that work, which is repetitive in nature and high volume, really can help you use that flexibly and make you more agile. And you can introduce variations to your contract to eliminate any backlog of work. The constant process of contact and negotiation with your outsourced supplier enables you to switch on and off that resource when you need it. And of course, having that additional capacity on the compliance-based work, it means you can widen the scope of services you offer to clients, especially around advisory services, for instance. I mentioned payroll at the outset of the presentation. If you don't offer payroll services to your clients already, then you can use that through your outsourced supplier. You don't actually have to build up that knowledge and expertise yourself. You just contract it in, and it makes for a wider selection of services that you can offer your clients. And also, the scalability that outsourcing provides should not be underestimated, and it can really underpin your business growth plans. And if I bring you in here, Adam, because I remember when we first started talking to each other when I joined Initor, you talked about how you've seen outsourcing as really key to your delivery over the medium term. It'd be really good if you could share that experience with the audience, because it's quite a case study, I found.
As I say, it all sort of knitted into our journey. I mean, included with Capium, my practice is completely virtual. I needed to be able to have a solution that would enable people overseas to work, so that the whole cloud model suited me down to the ground. And then you start working with an outsourcer to the point where you truly rely on the service that they're providing you. It's not just that, oh, we're a bit busy, chuck it to those guys. It's absolutely fundamental to what we do, to the point where our biggest challenge here as a practice is feeding the machine with being our outsourced partner, because we know that work can be processed so efficiently and quickly that actually to get in front of our game, I actually hired somebody that just record chases. just gets into clients to get the information out of them so that we can be proactive on the front foot all the time, because the biggest backlog to us now is our clients and how fast they're able to provide us information. Our ability to turn that around and get back to them is the least of my troubles. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it just kind of, and as we've grown, I've always been able to turn around and say, hey guys, can you come with me? And the answer is always yes. And then the payroll side is a great case study where we've now got to a level of proactivity where the people that, you know, the guys that work on my accounts and my clients, you know, they know our clients so well, they know what's coming next, and we have a communication channel that bypasses me. That they use our payroll email address, and they are the payroll team, and all my clients know that. We oversee it and we manage it, of course, and we see everything that goes through, but fundamentally we're not really doing the work. So it can get to that level of intuition, and our next step is to hardwire you guys into our workflow software, so that we're literally reporting everything live.
Excellent. And on the next slide, I'm going to deal with some of those client service matters that you just highlighted there. When you think about outsourcing for the first time, you know, your client attitude to knowing that their services are being outsourced really is you know, something that you have to wrestle with. The important thing when you outsource work is that you will remain a key contact for client relationships. The outsource provider isn't looking to take any of that ground away from you, and you will find your time with more time to understand your client's businesses and upsell services. So you get closer to your client when you outsource the work that maybe isn't as lucrative in terms of profit margins for you. We mentioned time zones, a few things, you know, a few things happening while you sleep, especially Adam, but outsource providers work to UK time zones as well. So you can always contact your account manager if you need to make any adjustments to your work or talk about any issues that may arise from time to time. The outsource provider is always there. And they also have experts on hand to advise people on UK culture, you know, public holidays, political and popular culture as well. So that when outsource providers are in touch with their clients, usually by email, they can understand what comes back from clients, you know, in terms of any reasons for delays, that sort of thing. Most providers have a UK headquarters with customer experience professionals on hand, and those guys, people like myself, we will always be available to support you in the UK if that is needed. And of course, most accountant engagement letters now do contain clauses on allowing you to outsource work. So in my opening remarks, I spoke about how, you know, clients now understand that work may not always be completed in the UK, and that's accounted for in your engagement letters in any event. And I guess if I bring in Alan again, you know, do your clients, you know, perceive any differences or any advantages in the way some of the work is turned around?
I think that probably the biggest advantage that the clients experience is that they can pick up the phone and speak to one of us that they need to speak to, because we're not busy doing the compliance work or you know, chasing something in for the bookkeeping, the payroll, whatever it might well be. So that relationship is better and stronger, and they get more value from the advice then that we're able to offer them, because the information's turned around more quickly, so it's more up to date, and then you can have more meaningful conversations that are more relevant then to the business owner. So I think that's how we found it, and certainly we've sort of we deal with quite a number of sort of service providers themselves in terms of what they do. They're sort of B2B kind of businesses that are in a sort of providing some sort of service to their own customer base. So they definitely appreciate the pressure that's on them from their own time point of view and their own team's time point of view. So I think they really, really benefit that speed of response and that ability for us to get information back to them really, really quickly.
Yeah, I think that's right. You know, the more you can get alongside your clients, understand their pressures, their needs, you know, it really does help you with the outsourcing going on in the background. If you go to the next slide, Nick, I'll talk about some of the impact on people and your teams that certainly I found when I was outsourcing for the first time. You need to be clear with your team's individual accountants as well, that outsourcing isn't a threat, it's a business solution, and it's part of your operating framework. So any growth plans or delivery plans that you're putting together now, you really need to think about outsourcing as part of the solution that you need to deliver. Internal processes can be updated to ensure that work outsourced is transparently delivered. What I mean by that is you can compare the performance of your outsource provider to your internal teams. You may see turnaround times improved, but you also have quality measures as well that you will want to be mindful of. So you can compare how the outsource provider shapes up to your internal solution in any event. It also helps you avoid expensive resourcing mistakes. I think everyone has been there when you've just got the wrong person into your organisation, or maybe they're not the right fit. And outsourcing can help you mitigate some of the risk around that whole agenda. And also, if you do have workforce issues to resolve, outsourcing can increase your resilience to some of those issues. We've seen it through, the pandemic, when it was a really, everyone was working remotely. Outsourcing work, it is a remote solution in any event, and it can help you be resilient to some of these completely, unexpected factors that affect us from time to time. And also outsourcing recurring tasks can have a positive impact on your people, especially bookkeeping. You may have, accountants tied up on some fairly low-level tasks, and actually taking that sort of work away from your teams can, in fact, improve staff morale. So that's certainly some of my perspective around how, certainly the teams I've worked with have been positively impacted by outsourcing. Now, I know Alan and Adam, you have, quite narrow teams in terms of numbers of resources. But if I bring in Adam, maybe for instance, did you have to do anything with any of your teams to talk about how outsourcing might impact them, or was it really a non-issue for you?
Almost the reverse. When hiring, I would, because I was outsourcing before, I had our own in-house team here. I would sell it to them as a benefit that they've got this team already at their hands. You can either go and work for other company down the road that's going to make you do all your own prep, or here's our outsourcer that's going to do all this work for you. Your job is now coordination, management, and client engagement. And the only other sort of things to be aware of there is then having the right staff member that knows how to liaise well with the outsourcer, because that's a human thing and a soft skills thing. And what I've seen is if you treat your outsourcer as if they were in your organisation, you get that respect and output back. And I've seen other people approach it a little bit too brusquely, and it doesn't work quite so well. It still works because the work ethic is there, but it works so much better when you embrace it as part of what we do rather than just an add-on.
Yeah, I think that's right. You can't just outsource the work and then forget about it. There needs to be a high awareness within your practice of the types of tasks that are being outsourced, and really how it benefits the individual by not having to deal with that work day to day, but just being mindful that it is being completed, and it's being completed to a high standard. So I'll move on to the next slide, Nick, if that's all right. Talk about some of the data security issues that you may be sort of wrestling with, in terms of how you deliver on that. Now, most outsourced providers will be GDPR compliant, and here at Initor, we go the extra mile. We're accredited ISO 27001. So you can allay any concerns around being compliant with data security and data protection. And of course, you should be integrating your outsourced provider with your existing data security protocols in any event. So that really is a important step to go over from the outset. And of course, using cloud-based solutions mean data can't be downloaded and it's accessed securely in any event. So you don't need to worry about your intellectual property being compromised or data being downloaded and used for nefarious purposes. And what you can also do is you arrange a site visit to your outsourced provider and check what security arrangements they have. particularly around any recording devices or CCTV and so on, just to allay any concerns that you may have at the very detailed level. And just in terms of GDPR compliance, typically your practice will still be the data controller, and the outsourced company will usually be the data processor. So those responsibilities will be set out in the contracts that you have. A lot of that is fairly self-evident, so I don't really need to bring in Alan and Adam on that. But what I will do is move to the next slide and talk about some of the emerging trends that I think that outsourcing can certainly help with, if you don't mind, Nick. So I mentioned cloud accounting, moving really quickly at the moment. It's so much easier now for clients to move from software provider to software provider. That's made really easy. Outsourcing can help you with that when you're onboarding clients through the various cloud accounting routes that we have. Advancing in accounting software, your outsourced provider will be working with many UK practices, and it would be extremely unusual, certainly with Initor, that you would find a software that we're not familiar with. And we do keep up to date with sort of training for our staff and all aspects of accounting software. Remote working, it's now an expectation among many staff that they have a hybrid approach to their workplace, maybe 2 days in the office, 3 days away, that sort of thing. Outsourcing can help with all that because you have a stable provider of work that's not going to be affected by any remote working if people aren't in your office. AI for accounting, I mentioned chat and chatbots and so on. Certainly outsourcing can help with all that, allowing you time to develop that part of your business. And blockchain technology as well. Outsource providers are familiar with that, especially in an audit context as well. So there are a number of trends that outsourcing can certainly help you with and maybe provide advice as we go along. So if you go to the next slide, please, Nick, I'll just bring all that together with some concluding remarks. Okay, the slide. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, just some concluding remarks from me around outsourcing, picking up on some of the themes that we've gone through. Certainly, from my perspective, outsourcing, it undoubtedly helps you increase your efficiencies and reduce your costs. And you've heard from both Adam and Alan around that agenda. It also underpins effective pricing of services, especially in the inflationary environment that we find ourselves in at the moment. It would be interesting to see how many accountants have managed to increase the price of their services by 10% plus, which sort of reflects the increased costs of providing some of these services. So having an outsourced provider providing volume and low unit costs certainly helps you price your services more effectively. It can add value by allowing you to respond quickly to emerging situations, especially around tax year end, tax changes, and also any backlogs of work that may arise around the sort of self-assessment tax return season as well. I've mentioned on a number of occasions that some of these recurring tasks are removed from your day-to-day operations, and that allows your accountants to focus on clients needs, and also people development. Helps with your staff retention agenda as well. I've mentioned that also that future growth plans should always consider how outsourcing can help you deliver and also help you scale as well. And outsourcing should always be integrated into your practice operating framework. So in terms of your performance management, measuring outcomes, measuring impact on clients, that all needs to be integrated with your day-to-day processes as well, so that you can see any difference in the services provided offshore with the services provided in-house. So if we could move to the next slide, this is our second poll, which Mimi is now going to run. And this talks about, having heard from our presentation and our guests, which of the following applies to you? Do you still feel outsourcing services isn't right for you? Do you think outsourcing could help you in the future? or do you feel you're ready to outsource services now? So let's have a look and see what the views of the audience are.
Responses are just coming in.
Okay, great.
Robert, quick question.
Yep.
Which softwares does Initor support? Because I think there'll be a spectrum of software users on this call. So it'd be great to have a bit more insight on that.
Yeah, all the major softwares, your QuickBooks, Xero, Sage, all that sort of thing. Many practices use sort of off-the-shelf CRM systems, Salesforce, HubSpot. So we're comfortable using your CRM systems as well. Many of our clients have developed their own CRM systems, so we access those remotely using a remote desktop arrangement. So really, there isn't a software out there that we're not able to cope with. And if you brought something to us, we would quickly get our guys trained up on it with your input. So yeah, I think we can handle anything that comes our way in terms of software.
Brilliant. So I'm just going to close the poll. It seems like outsourcing work can help me in the future. Seems to be the most kind of popular choice. And the rest is 25% saying I'm ready to outsource services now. And another 25% are saying outsourcing services isn't right for me.
Okay, so fairly even spread. That's interesting. So if you move to the next slide, then for the 50% of you who think outsourcing can help you in the future, and the 25% who think outsources can help you now, I'll just give you some information on Initor and how to keep in touch with us. So if you want to go to the next slide, Nick.
It's there. Perfect.
Okay. I'm still seeing the slide, but yeah. Our offering, we were established in 2006, and we can help you with any of your outsourcing needs. Using secure technologies, we can help you reduce business risk, operating costs, improve efficiency, help you create capacity, and we can help you improve client satisfaction as well. These are all positive outcomes that we've seen from the clients that we have at the moment. We also help you ensure your data integrity and data protection arrangements, and we always aim to help drive up your quality standards, and we're happy to be measured against your existing quality standards as well. For those of you who are IFA members who are on the call, if you go to the next slide, Nick, it will just highlight some of the sort of the very granular parts of our offering. There's a free, no obligation trial of our services, so please feel free to take us up on that offer for your first year of contract. For IFA members and those attending the webinar, we'll offer a 15% discount. You can commission services on an ad hoc basis, and hourly rates, half-time, full-time equivalents as well. So those are all contractual arrangements we have. And importantly, and I think this does set us aside from other providers, you'll have a named relationship manager as your key point of contact as well. So there's quite a lot that we feel that provides an edge to the services that we offer here at Initor. And we're just going to close the webinar now on the final slide, Nick. Just from my side, thank you ever so much for listening, and thank you wholeheartedly to our guests today, Alan Woods and Adam Gunnell. It's been brilliant to hear your insights. It's always a pleasure to hear from our guests. If you want to arrange an informal discussion, please feel free to email me or hello email at Initor. Visit our website as well, or those that prefer to do it the old-fashioned way and give us a phone call. We've got a number as well. And I'm on LinkedIn, so if you want to connect with me, I'd be delighted to reciprocate. So that's my closing remarks. Nick, anything from your side?
I'm just going to leave the chat open for a little moment to see if there's any questions that arise really from the webinar. But I just have one question to Adam and Alan. I think you speak a lot about how outsourcing helped your business, but did it impact your your lifestyle? It sounded like Adam, you were alluding to that you're finally getting some sleep. So I think lifestyle seems to be, I don't know, one of the important things that's coming out of 2023 is your work-life balance. So I was just wondering, other than just profitability, has it made an impact to you and your staff in that kind of way?
I'm only laughing because, of course, you fill the spare time up with something else. So yes, it has, is the short answer. In isolation, if you took it as what was I doing, hours I was working, levels of stress I was enduring, that's all come down, which again has given me the space to fill that up with more stressful activities that keep me awake at night. But that's called growing a practice. So I'm just very happy that the arrangements I have in place allow me to do that. So I have a choice now.
Brilliant. Same to you, Alan, sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I thought you were going to have to ask me to share what I was doing at night time then. So I think Adam's already tried to share that. But yeah, no, definitely is. From a management of your own time, I think one thing that COVID sort of probably created, I suppose, is that kind of, and we already had it, was that kind of always on kind of attitude where no matter when there was something that came through, you were there to sort of respond. And obviously during COVID, when there was not much else to do, that was kind of fine. But trying to manage that and control that and get back to actually having some downtime, mental health is a massive thing at the moment for everybody to try and be aware of. And I think being able to manage workload and the stress and the pressure that sort of creates, and particularly with accountants, we tend to take on the pressure from our clients probably more so than what our clients have sometimes, particularly around deadlines and how they're going to pay the tax. We take on that burden, I think, often. So if we can free up some headspace to be able to have conversations with clients about how they can improve that and how we can help them improve that, that's going to be a win-win for everybody, I think.
Brilliant. Just to say, what you do in your free time, Alan, is your prerogative.
Totally up to us, yeah.
or that could be another webinar or webcam even. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining. Just to stress, the slides and the webinar recording will be shared afterwards. That's all from us all today. Thank you all. Have a lovely day. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.